Welcome, everyone, to the Insurance Perspectives podcast. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Dale Steinke, Director of Agent for the Future Advisors for Liberty Mutual. Dale, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the show.
Brad, thank you very much. I am super excited to be here. This is one of my favorite topics. Frankly, it's the only topic I talk about now these days, it feels like. So, really looking forward to getting into it with you.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It's such a hot topic. I think the hottest topic in our industry, maybe in the country. Dale is the director of the Agent for the Future Advisors at Liberty Mutual, where he works with independent agents every day to help them leverage technology to drive business results. A former journalist turned AI advocate and evangelist, Dale works to drive industry conversation forward through podcast appearances, industry articles, and speaking engagements. When he's not demystifying AI, you'll find him on his bike riding long distances to raise money for charity or in his kitchen trying out the latest cooking trends. Demystifying, that's definitely a ChatGPT word. That was in about every sentence when I started using ChatGPT, so that's perfect. Dale, to kick us off, why don't you tell us, for those that don't know, a little bit about the Agent for the Future program and kind of the purpose behind it.
Sure, glad to. Agent for the Future is an initiative of Liberty Mutual, and it's really to help independent agents embrace change and build for the future. Our goal is to help keep agents informed about the latest trends shaping the industry, and then provide the tools and resources that they need to stay ahead of that curve. And as an advisor, Agent for the Future advisor, my job is to help share those tools and resources with agents and offer practical advice on how they can bring those things into their agencies in a way that makes sense for each of their unique businesses. And over the past 2 years, my singular focus has been on AI, and I've spoken with thousands of agents about AI in that time. And my goal is really to help support agents on their journey, help them safely and effectively implement it. At the agency level and individually as well.
Talk about how you are getting, relaying these messages. I know I've participated in a couple of the smaller groups right there at Safeco's home office. So, what are some of the ways that you're getting these messages out?
Yeah, doing things like this podcast. Yes, certainly. Anytime we have agents in Seattle, where I am based, I get to spend time with you all and chat about what you're seeing and what you're doing. Also, been at a lot of events. I've got a couple dozen already, set up for this year. Where I'm going to be out speaking in person, a lot of virtual things as well. We do webinars and other online things. So yeah, if it's somewhere where agents are at, you're probably going to find us there, and me as well.
What would you say is the why behind Liberty Mutual took this initiative? I applaud them for taking this. I don't know of another company that has the foresight to help. It's an amazing resource. There's a lot of us on the independent agency side that are forward thinking and always looking to improve. And then you know um, there's just so many that don't know where to get started.
Mhm.
So can you talk a little bit about why Liberty Mutual? Because it's an investment, but it's an investment to do to in my view, for Liberty Mutual to help do their part to help make the independent agency channel better.
Yeah, I think that is an interesting philosophy at Liberty Mutual. Is I think the idea really is that we're trying to help grow the channel as a whole. An Agent for the Future is a great example of that. It's for the industry. We really want to see the independent agent channel not only survive but thrive. And frankly, the majority of our business comes through the independent agent channel. If the independent agent channel is stronger, we're all going to get stronger as a result. And frankly, it's the best channel out there. You've got that
Yeah,
mix of ease, choice, and advice that you're not going to find anywhere else.
yeah, yeah. I think it's fantastic. We'll shift over to AI. That is, the A topic of the day. To get started, let's say there's so many agents out there. Everybody hears about AI. We should be using AI. Every business, says they should
Mhm.
be using AI. It can be overwhelming,
For
scary.
sure.
What suggestions, might you have for agents that are looking to get started in some sort of AI platforms?
Yeah, I think there's four things, and I'll just sort of tick them off and then go in a little more detail on those if you like. And so I think there's four things if you're thinking about bringing AI into your agency. Use it wisely to keep your data more secure. I know HawkSoft talks about that a lot.
Mhm.
Totally resonates in this scenario as well. Review your agency tech stack for existing AI capabilities. Poll your staff about how they're using AI, not only how they are using it, but how they would like to use it as well. And then lastly, set employee expectations with an agency AI acceptable use policy or usage
Mm.
policy. So first, about using AI wisely, you've got to keep security and data privacy at the top of your list. If you're using generative AI, ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, blah, 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 so on and so forth, all those ones. I always, encourage people to get a paid version
Yeah.
for a couple reasons. Not only do you get better service, but you also get improved security and data privacy protections. There's that saying, if the product's free, you are the product. If you're using,
Yeah.
a Gen AI free tool and you put something in there, they're using what you put in there to train the next version of that model. And so something you put in there, like say your client information, I see that happening a lot where agencies will, analyze policies that have their customers'
Yeah.
information in it. Freaks me out every time I hear that. But it's like when you do that, that you risk that data showing up in the next version of that Gen AI engine. And then the next thing I think about then too is that, when I talked about inventorying your tech stack, we're seeing AI show up in more and more tools that have been in agencies for years. And so, what a lot of people are finding out is that, hey, I already have AI. I'm already paying for it. Did not know it was there. I should probably figure out a way to use that. And then the third one, polling your staff. Again, find those early adopters, find the ones who are figuring out the use cases that you can, turn into something phenomenal in your agency. Or you can say, hey, that's great, Brad, that you're doing that. But why don't we hold off on this other thing for a little bit until we figure out, how to do that in a way that's going to be beneficial to the agency and protect data. And then lastly, that AI usage policy, that sets the guardrails, tells people what's okay, what is, how they can use it, what they should avoid using, what their official tools are. I actually, just before this call, I was on a session with 40 agents at an agency, teaching them the basics of AI, and they'll get access to tools once they've taken the training and signed off on the agency's AI usage policy,
Mm.
which specifies what tools they can
Wow.
use and what tools they can't. So, it's that one's just a big one, and I think it's super important. We've got resources on Agent for the Future that agencies can use to help build that policy.
Ooh,
And if you want to get super meta about it, ask AI to help you write an AI policy for your agency, and
brilliant.
it will give it a really good first shot at it.
That's great stuff. Um, and I've already taken something away from this that I can, because really I'm in that process right now where I've taking on exploring an AI product. And for
Mhm.
me, this is, I learned this a while ago with just tech in general. It's one thing if I add on this tech, but in order to invest in it, you really have to help your team utilize it and add, new features and new processes into your business. So I'm at that phase right now of exploring utilizing it. And before I take on 7 different seats of
Mhm.
this, platform, I need to show them the use of it and
Yeah.
how we can use it. So it's one thing, you have to get trained up, and then you have to be ready and willing to get your team trained up. And so this advice of having a policy and guardrails is beautiful. Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, we'll see. Only according to our research, the last time around, we've got new research coming out this spring. But when we asked this question last year, only 12% of agencies had an AI usage policy. Your comment about adding in a new product, another use that I'm seeing agencies do with that is they're saying, hey, I've got this process change I'm going to make. How do I help communicate this to the staff and train them? And you actually use AI to help you figure out
Yeah,
how to incorporate that, because it helps to uncover some things that you may not have thought of
yeah.
on your own.
Which is so much of what AI does. It's amazing. I'm blown away all the time of how good of information, and again, to the point of just giving you thoughts that you didn't think of, that that were there. That's why I love it.
Yeah, that strategist and thought partner is something that's next level. Everybody uses it for content creation, but helping you think through things is just is super, super helpful.
Maybe along those lines, what should we be cautious of when taking on new AI? There's statistics out there about the errors that it has. I don't know. I've heard a lot of different numbers that oftentimes an AI program is only 70% accurate, and that we always can't always just take what it says as
Mhm.
being accurate. What are some areas where, when getting started with AI, where agents should be cautious as they explore?
With a lot of these AI, generative AI tools, they're very confident in their answers. You read it and it sounds, man, that sounds fantastic. Ultimately, though, at the end of the day, if AI gets something wrong, you're not going to be able to say, well, the AI got it wrong, it's AI's fault. People are going to say, no, it's you got it wrong
Yep.
because you okayed it. Think of it this way. If you had an intern, super bright, does whatever you want, would you say to that intern, hey, write this communication to this upset client and then send it? No review. You would never ever do that. But people a lot of times do that with AI. And it's like, treat it like an employee, as an assistant. Check the work. There are lots of ways to work around that. I mean, things that I think about, and this is what I coach to, is asking AI to show you where it got the information from. Because then you can check,
Yeah,
like, you check
verify it.
the source.
That's right.
you know, and yeah, it happens all the time though. People get the source and go, "Oh, it has a source, so it must be good," but they don't check the source.
I'll do that even if I'm asking to, say, review a policy, and then I'll say, okay, well, can you tell me what page this is on?
Oh, yeah.
And or if I ask it to search the internet and find this for me, and then include the resource where you have that, because I need backup.
It's interesting too is that AI oftentimes will not challenge you on things. So say you put something in there that's wrong, or it gives you something, and unless you challenge it, it's just going to go with it. I actually have in my settings, I have custom prompting that explains how I want it to act, and
Yeah.
one of the things I tell is don't guess. For everything you're showing me, show me your reasoning. So I'm getting it to check for me, and then I can get a leg up on knowing what it gave me, whether there's a shred of truth in there somewhere. And frankly, accuracy is getting much better. Hallucinations are still a thing, but we're not 100% yet, but it's getting a lot better. And for some of the things we do, like the policy, checking policy renewals, the tools that do that, they're averaging 95 to 98% accuracy is what they're saying. And your
Mm.
point too about show me where in the policy it is, that gets you to the proof that, oh yeah,
Yeah.
it was accurate or not. And I don't know that humans are 95, 98% accurate when reviewing stuff like that.
Good point. What types of tools are you seeing or hearing of agents use that are really moving the needle and making them more efficient?
They're focusing on things that tend to be very repetitive and time
Hmm.
consuming tasks. So if you think about, what can AI help me with there? So some of the things that I'm seeing is the policy reviews and policy checking. That's a really, really big one. Probably the largest number of vendors that I'm, in any single category that I'm tracking right now is that one. So we actually have a vendor resource on our site. We're close to 80 different vendors right now. It's actually, it'll be over 100 probably here by the next time you all go look at it. What I'm seeing too is people using it to address like agency process improvement, like we were talking about earlier. I'm seeing it show up in phone systems
Yeah.
where it does one of two things. You either transcribe and summarize what's coming in that call, or it's actually answering the calls themselves. And in both cases, it's logging that information sometimes into as activity notes into the AMS.
Yeah.
You're seeing tools that are taking email conversations, summarizing them, and dropping them into activity notes. Things that take people a lot of time, that are really repetitive. And then also too, I'm seeing it show up more in office productivity tools. And where I think AI is going is that you're going to see it everywhere. And if you're in office or in your Google Workspace, you're seeing AI work its way into those tools you're using every day. So they're, using it to respond to emails, to, figure out, give me a history of everybody, this person I've talked to, and give me a summary, that kind of thing. So lots of uses. Pretty much anything in your agency that's repetitive, time consuming, is ripe for being using AI to address it.
For me, the two things that come to mind for that, and again, we talk about AI trying to make us more efficient, and are the just general quoting,
Mm-hmm.
especially in today's market, is more difficult, and the renewal review process.
Yep.
And so, and right now we are extremely bogged down on our renewal review process, and
Mm-hmm.
there are definitely programs right now that help with that. It's a matter of kind of, getting it together and developing a
Yep.
system to do that. I know that, Liberty Mutual is neutral. And now it's your Switzerland, as you've
Switzerland.
said
Yeah.
once before.
Yep.
Are there any programs that you have seen or heard agencies talk about that are kind of at the forefront and have really been helpful in agencies?
Looking at the vendor resource on our site is probably the best place to go for that, because there are so many out there. One thing though I would caution with that is, like, for our HawkSoft audience here, as I'm thinking about, you know, what AI do I want to bring into an agency? My first question is, like, is it going to interface with the systems you have? And, you know, HawkSoft has a great solutions partners list. You're going to find at least a quarter of those. I took a quick glance at it, have AI capabilities today. If they're on there, they're going to probably interface with HawkSoft. That to me becomes a leader for you as an agency, versus all the other ones that are out there that are probably going to be bright, shiny objects because they don't integrate with what you do.
Before I forget, I do want to mention you've referenced the resource on the Agents for the Future site. We will include both the Agents for the Future site and the direct resource link, and I would encourage people to go check it out because it is a great resource. It's clean, and like you said, it has so many of the vendors. So if you don't know where to start, this is a good place to start on what products do what, and and you can.
And the important thing with that too is that it's these are tools that agencies are using today. Because there are thousands of vendors out there with AI stuff, but we really wanted to keep it focused to the ones that are actually being used in our channel today.
I think something to consider for those agents that don't know where to start. I would start with, what problems do I have? What problem am I trying to solve? And then from there, you can access, say, a resource guide and what are the options. What would you say are maybe some important questions that we should be, or some important considerations when we're exploring these different AI platforms?
That's an excellent point. The idea that it's the problem first, then the solution, then the tool. Um, that's definitely the wise course to take. Totally agree with that. It's there again. There are a lot of bright shiny objects out there. Again, the first thing I think is, does it integrate? The next thing I think about with these tools is, is it being used by others in the channel, so you can have a sense of, do they get insurance and all the nuances that we have. A really big one though for me is, how do they treat your data? Do they have robust security protocols? I'm looking for like SOC 2 certifications, and data in transit, data at rest, and then looking at the model itself. Is it training on that data, or is it walled off and being kept private to your agency? Those are the big ones for me.
A little bit on that, on the data, which is very important. And you touched on some of that there. Is that on your resource guide? Because that would be something that would be super helpful. Because if I just asked the question, is my data secure? And they said yes, I don't know where to go, from there.
Yeah, that is something that we've thought about. It's a major undertaking to try and keep up with that, because part of the challenge we have is everything's changing so fast.
Yes.
There are, I think there are some third parties out there that can help with that, like people like Catalyst, that are trying to do some of that. Really, though, at the end of the day, you as a business have to decide if the security that they have is adequate to what you want to see. It's really, I would not want to have an agency solely take our word on something like that. It's just too
Yeah,
important. You
yeah.
got to know. You got to know.
What would you say to agencies that are reluctant to get started with AI?
Oh, it's totally understandable. I know it's a lot to take in. The thing is, the speed with which all this stuff has come on is just unprecedented. You think
Hmm.
about it. 3 years ago, ChatGPT hit the market, the public version of it. 3 years, but you are seeing it everywhere. The closest comparison I can make is like the digital revolution. You think about computers, internet, smartphones. You know, while that adoption was slow, we can't live without those technologies. And so I think AI is pretty much going to go down the same path. You really need to be thinking about it from the perspective of not whether I'm going to use it, but it's more about how I'm going to use it effectively. And so I think it's a change in mindset. There's a guy named Zach Cass who was the former head of go to market for OpenAI. Was the folks who brought us ChatGPT. He said something recently that I really resonated with me was that we're never going to be more challenged to learn more in our lives than we are right now. But if we embrace adaptability, curiosity, and courage, we're going to experience a truly transformative era in human history. And I think the takeaway for us is that agencies using AI responsibly could gain a competitive edge, beyond anything we've seen before. So and you and I have talked about this, is that
Yeah.
that competitive edge piece. I don't think you want to be the one not using it. It's kind of like saying, hey, I'm not going to use the internet. I'm going to stick with a typewriter and fax machine. We would never do that. AI is just coming so fast that we think we have to start getting more comfortable with it. We actually started an AI boot camp to help demystify it and help agency employees at all levels, become more confident and effective with AI. Because we know, we see it, we get it, and we want to try and help solve for that.
Obviously, the danger is if you're not looking at it now, and kind of getting in on somewhat this, lower level,
Mhm.
it's moving so fast. How far are you going to be behind 2 years from now?
Yeah.
Who knows where we're going to be 2 years from now? Which brings the next question of the kind of a scarcity mindset question of will AI replace agents? What's your thought there?
I get that question a lot. Um, I look at it from the perspective of AI is a tool that's going to help amplify our abilities. The way that I see it is helping people do things that maybe don't bring them joy. There are a lot of rote, repetitive things that we do every day. Wouldn't it be nice to do fewer of those things and do more of the things that support our customers and add value? Being that a trusted advisor, giving people peace of mind. AI can't do that. We as humans, though, with those relationships in this relationship based business, ultimately by using AI, we'll have more time to do more of that, which is going to further differentiate us from all the other channels out there that are nowhere near as good as the independent agent channel.
Agreed. Well said. I think a good, as I'm exploring, and this is just a simple example, we will often get for, say, somebody who lives in a townhome, a homeowners association documents that says, here's the requirements. Here's your, 7-page HOA requirements. I can plug this into this AI platform, ask it, and put my declaration page in there and tell me where the inefficiencies are, and it spits it out clean. Here's where your gaps are. Here's where your inefficiencies are. That takes a minute.
Yeah. Try to write that by hand, right?
No, and so it gave me the data, and it's just that's just one small example. There's
Mhm.
so many of those, but that's an example of how it can make us more efficient, and then we can convert that over into a really nice proposal to submit to the insured. It's mind blowing how
Yeah.
fast. And again, I'm just getting to know it,
Yeah.
so I know that it's going to make me more efficient.
Well, one of the things that I always say too with Gen AI is if you don't know what it can do, ask it. Say there's this thing you want to do. It's like, how can you help me with this? And it may not be able to do the actual task, but it might get you 60-80% of the way there. Summarizing a document and putting it in plain language that's not insurance speak, My gosh, that's from a customer perspective. That is awesome.
It's evolving so fast, as we've alluded. Where do you think we're going? Where is this going in the next couple of years?
Certainly watching that with great interest, as is everybody else. I think that over the next few years, you're going to see us moving from, we're pretty much in an experimentation phase right now in a lot of ways. We're just kicking the tires, trying some things out. Where I see it changing is it's really going to be integrated into the work we do every day. It's going to make us a lot more productive. It's going to free us up from a lot of that repetitive, lower value tasks, so we can spend more time working with clients. And the other piece I think that I'm seeing too, and this year is probably the year where it's probably going to start becoming more visible, is that we're all going to become bosses in agencies, every employee, but we're going to be bosses of AI agents, not necessarily of other people. Those agents are going to go out and do things for us, come back with the result, and then we, as the humans in the loop, as they sometimes say, will say, yes, let's do that, or no, let's not do that, and make those final decisions, or go do this next thing next. Ultimately, again, I think, I said earlier, I think this is on a trajectory to become as common as the internet. It's going to be integrated in everything we use. It's basically just going to melt in the landscape. Right now, businesses talk about having an AI strategy. In a couple of years, it's our strategy, and
That's
AI
right.
is just a component of that. We don't have an internet strategy or a cloud computing strategy, right? It's just like we
Right.
just have a strategy. You just
Yeah.
factor that in.
I think that's a good place for us to end this. This has been a lot of good information, a lot of good content. I'd encourage people to check out the resource. It's, maybe there are other resources, but I haven't seen one like this. So extremely helpful. So Dale, I want to thank you a lot for taking the time. I know you have a very busy schedule, so I want to thank you for joining us today.